The stars above Neptune Station looked cold and far away. Marcus Cole stood at the window of his small workshop, watching them like he did every night. He was a mechanic. He fixed broken things. Ships, robots, machines. He was good at it. But there was one thing he could not fix. Himself. 5 years ago. Marcus had a wife named Sarah and a daughter named Emma. They were his whole world. Then one day a transport ship failed during a routine trip. A malfunction. An explosion. They were gone in seconds. Marcus survived because he was not on that ship. Sometimes he wished he had been. Now he lived alone on this distant station. He worked. He slept, but he did not really live. The other workers called him the Ghost because he barely spoke and never smiled. Marcus did not mind the name. Ghosts were just people who had lost everything but kept walking anyway. That night, something strange happened. Marcus was closing his workshop when a bright light cut across the dark sky. A ship. It was falling fast, spinning out of control, trailing fire and smoke. It crashed into the rocky ground about a mile from the station. The impact shook the floor under his feet. Marcus grabbed his emergency kit and ran. He did not know why. Maybe old instincts. Maybe he just needed something to do. When he reached the crash site, the ship was broken into pieces. It was unlike any design he had ever seen. The metal was smooth and silver, almost like liquid that had frozen in place. Alien. Definitely alien. He heard a sound. A small voice crying in the darkness. Marcus climbed through the wreckage, cutting his hands on sharp edges. He did not care. He followed the crying until he found her. A child. An alien child. She was small, maybe 7 or 8 years old, by human standards. Her skin was silver, like moonlight. Her eyes were large and violet, filled with tears. She wore a torn dress that looked like it was made from woven starlight. When she saw Marcus, she did not scream or run. She just looked at him with those big, sad eyes. "Help," she whispered in broken words. "Please help." Marcus knelt down slowly so he would not scare her. Hey, it is okay. I am not going to hurt you. Can you move? Are you injured?" The child shook her head. She pointed at her chest. Not body hurt. Heart hurt. Mother far away. Bad people chasing. Marcus looked around the wreckage. No other survivors. The child was alone. Something protective woke up inside him. Something he thought had died with Emma. "What is your name?" he asked gently. "Lyravith," she said. "But Mother calls me Lyra. Okay, Lyra, I am Marcus. Let us get you somewhere safe." He picked her up carefully. She was lighter than he expected, like holding a bundle of feathers. She wrapped her thin arms around his neck and held on tight. Marcus carried her back to his workshop and set her down on his old couch. He gave her water and a blanket. She drank slowly, watching him with curious eyes. "You are human," Lyra said. It was not a question. "Yes. How do you know about humans?" "Mother studies humans. She says you are strange creatures. You feel too much, but that is why she needs you." Marcus sat down across from her. "What do you mean? Why does your mother need humans?" Lyra pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Her violet eyes filled with fresh tears. "My mother is the queen, Queen Seraphine of the Celestine Dominion. Our people are dying, Marcus, not from sickness or war. We are dying because we forgot how to feel. Long ago, my ancestors removed emotions. They thought feelings were weakness. They wanted to be pure logic, cold and perfect." She looked down at her small silver hands. "But without feelings, there is no hope. No love, no reason to keep living. Our people just exist. They do not dream or create or fight for anything. Every year, fewer children are born. Every year, more people simply stop caring if they live or die." Bement minded babber out to be better rever amber than better reven benner better bennet a brababin by. His heart ached in a way he did not expect. A whole civilization slowly fading because they had cut out the very thing that made life worth living. My mother found humans, Lyra continued. She studied you from far away. She saw how you laugh and cry and fight and love. She saw something beautiful, something we lost. Our ancient laws say a queen must have a king who carries the warmth, someone who can inspire hope. My mother searched the galaxy, but Celestines cannot feel. The king must come from outside. She sent you to find a human. Lyra shook her head. No, bad people found out. Lord Vathus. He wants Mother's throne. He sent assassins after me to stop her plan. I ran. My ship was damaged. I did not know where I was going. But then I felt something. She looked up at Marcus with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. I felt you. Your sadness. Your pain. It called to me across space like a bright fire in the darkness. So much feeling. So much warmth. Even in grief. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. His reflection stared back at him. A tired man with gray in his hair and shadows under his eyes. I am no king, Lyra. I am just a broken mechanic. I cannot even fix my own life. How am I supposed to save a whole civilization? I do not know, Lyra said honestly. But you feel things. Real things. That is more than anyone in my whole empire can do. She got up from the couch and walked to him. Her small hand reached up and touched his arm. Her violet eyes looked into his with desperate hope.
Human.
My mother needs a king, and I need a father. Please, come with us. The words hit Marcus like a punch to the chest. Father. He had not heard that word directed at him in 5 years. It brought back memories. Emma running to him with her drawings. Emma asking him to chase away monsters in her closet. Emma telling him she loved him on the last morning he ever saw her. He looked down at this strange alien child with silver skin and sad eyes. And he saw something familiar. A lost little girl who needed someone to tell her everything would be okay before he could answer. Alarms started screaming across the station. Red lights flashed through his window. Marcus heard shouting in the distance. Then he saw them. Dark ships descending through the atmosphere. 5 of them. They moved with deadly precision. They found me, Lyra whispered, her face going pale. Marcus grabbed his jacket and his tools. He did not think. He just acted. Is your ship completely destroyed? Any escape pods? 1. Small. In the back section. Maybe still working? Then we run. Now. He took her hand and they burst out of the workshop. Behind them, the assassin ships landed. Figures in black armor poured out, moving fast. Marcus ran harder than he had run in years. His lungs burned. His legs ached. But he did not let go of Lyra's hand. They reached the wreckage. Marcus found the escape pod half buried in dirt. He pulled it free and forced the door open. Inside was just enough room for 2 people. Get in, he ordered. Lyra climbed in. She looked at him with wide eyes. Are you coming? Marcus heard the soldiers getting closer. He heard their alien language, sharp and cold. He thought about his empty life, his empty workshop, his empty heart. Then he looked at the frightened child waiting for him. He climbed into the pod and sealed the door. Hold on tight, he said. The pod launched into the sky, leaving Neptune Station behind. Below them, the assassins fired weapons that lit up the night. But the pod was fast. It climbed higher and higher until the stars surrounded them. Lyra held his hand the whole way. Thank you, she said quietly. Thank you for coming. Marcus watched the darkness of space spread out before them. He had no idea what he was doing. He was no hero, no king, just a broken man holding the hand of a lost child. But for the first time in 5 years, he felt something other than grief. He felt purpose. Just tell me where to go, he said. Lyra pointed toward a distant cluster of stars. Home, We are going home. And the pod flew into the unknown. The escape pod drifted through the dark ocean of space. Marcus had managed to connect it to Lyra's damaged main ship before they left Neptune's orbit. Now they traveled through something called hyperspace. Outside the small window, colors twisted and danced in ways that made no sense to human eyes. Lyra sat beside Marcus on the narrow bench. She had stopped crying, but she stayed close to him like a shadow. Every few minutes, she would look up at him, just to make sure he was still there. "How long until we reach your home?" Marcus asked. 3 days in hyperspace. Then we arrive at Orion Prime. 3 days. Marcus leaned back against the cold metal wall. He had left everything behind. His workshop, his life. Everything he had built since losing Sarah and Emma. All of it gone in one impulsive decision to help a crying alien child. He should feel scared. He should feel regret. But strangely, he felt nothing but a quiet calm. "Tell me about your people," he said. "Help me understand what I am walking into." Lyra pulled her knees up to her chest. Her silver skin seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the pod. "The Celestine are very old. We existed when humans were still living in caves on Earth. We built great cities across many worlds. We created technology that could reshape planets. We thought we were the greatest beings in the universe." She paused, her violet eyes growing distant. "But we had a problem. Emotions. Our scientists believed feelings made us weak. Love caused pain when we lost people. Fear stopped us from taking risks. Anger led to wars. So they decided to remove emotions from our species. They changed our biology over many generations until feelings became almost impossible for us." "That sounds horrible," Marcus said quietly. "At first, they thought it was wonderful. No more suffering. No more conflict. Pure logic and reason. Our civilization grew peaceful and efficient. But then something strange happened. Without emotions, people stopped caring about the future. Why have children when there is no love to drive that desire? Why create art when there is no passion? Why explore when there is no curiosity?" She looked at Marcus with sad understanding far beyond her young years. "We became like machines, Marcus, going through the motions of life, but not truly living. Our population has been declining for centuries. Some Celestines simply stop eating or drinking because they cannot find a logical reason to continue existing. We are a dying species." Marcus thought about his own dark days after losing his family. The mornings when getting out of bed felt impossible. The moments when he wondered why he should bother. But something had always pulled him through. Memories of love. Hope that tomorrow might hurt less. The simple human refusal to quit. "Your mother thinks a human can fix this?" Mother believes humans carry what we lost. She calls it the warmth. It is not just happiness. It is everything. The ability to feel joy and sorrow, love and fear, hope and despair. All of it together makes you truly alive. She thinks if the Celestine can learn to feel again, our people might survive. And she needs a king for this. Lyra nodded. "Our ancient laws require it. A queen cannot rule alone. She must have a king who completes her. For thousands of years, this did not matter because all Celestine are the same, cold, logical, empty. But the law says the king must possess the warmth. It was written when our ancestors still had feelings. Nobody thought it would matter. But Mother found the old texts. She believes the law is our salvation." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I still do not understand why me. There are billions of humans. Many of them are better than me, stronger, smarter, less broken." Lyra reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were cool against his skin. "I told you. I felt you from across the stars. Your sadness burns so bright, Marcus. Most humans feel many things at once, all mixed together. But you carry one emotion so deep and so strong that I could sense it from light years away. That kind of feeling is rare, even among humans." "My grief is not a gift," Marcus said, his voice rough. "It is a wound that will not heal." "Maybe," Lyra said softly. "But wounds prove you loved something enough to be hurt by losing it." My people have no wounds because we have no love. I think maybe wounds are precious. Marcus did not know how to respond to that. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the strange colors of hyperspace swirl outside. On the third day, the ship dropped out of hyperspace. Marcus saw Orion Prime for the first time. It was beautiful beyond words. A planet of white and silver, covered in crystalline structures that caught the light of its twin suns. Cities floated in the atmosphere, connected by bridges of light. Everything was elegant, perfect, and cold. They landed in the capital city. Guards in gleaming armor met them at the dock. They had the same silver skin and violet eyes as Lyra, but their faces showed no emotion. Not relief that the princess was safe. Not curiosity about the human. Nothing. Lyra held Marcus's hand as they walked through the crystal corridors of the palace. Celestine citizens stopped to watch. Their blank stares made Marcus uncomfortable. It was like being observed by statues. Finally, they reached the throne room. It was vast and beautiful, made entirely of transparent crystal that showed the stars beyond. And there, sitting on a throne of frozen light, was Queen Seraphine. She was tall and elegant, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer. Her eyes were the deepest violet Marcus had ever seen, like pools of liquid twilight. Long white hair flowed over her shoulders like a waterfall of moonlight. She wore a crown of crystal that caught the light and scattered rainbows across the walls. She was the most beautiful being Marcus had ever seen, and the most distant. Looking at her was like looking at a glacier, magnificent but utterly cold. Mother. Lyra released Marcus's hand and ran to the throne. Queen Seraphine looked down at her daughter. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by calm emptiness. Lyraveth, you survived. This is satisfactory. Lyra stopped at the base of the throne, her arms falling to her sides. She had been about to embrace her mother, but Seraphine made no move to welcome her. Marcus felt a flash of anger. This child had survived assassins and crash landings and days of fear, and her mother could only say it was satisfactory. Seraphine's gaze moved to Marcus. She studied him the way a scientist might study a specimen. So, you are the human. My name is Marcus Cole. I know your designation. I have studied your species extensively. She rose from her throne and descended the steps with fluid grace. She circled Marcus slowly, examining him from every angle. You are smaller than I expected, less physically impressive. Your skin is a strange color, and you appear to be aging poorly. Thanks, Marcus said flatly. That was not a compliment. No. Seraphine stopped in front of him. Her violet eyes locked onto his brown ones. You feel things. I can see it in your face. Subtle movements of muscle, changes in skin color. Your pupils dilate with emotion. Fascinating, and also disturbing. I could say the same about you, Marcus replied. Your daughter nearly died. She crossed the galaxy to find you, and you cannot even hug her. Something shifted in Seraphine's expression. A tiny crack in the ice. I do not know how. We are not taught such things. Physical affection serves no logical purpose in Celestine culture. Then your culture is broken. The guards around the room stirred, hands moving toward weapons. But Seraphine raised a hand to stop them. She looked at Marcus with what might have been curiosity. You speak boldly to a queen? Yes, speak honestly. To a mother who does not know how to love her child. Where I come from, that is a tragedy. Seraphine was silent for a long moment. Then she looked at Lyra, who stood watching with hope and fear mixed on her small face. Perhaps Seraphine said slowly, that is exactly why I need you. She turned away and returned to her throne. The High Council has given me 30 planetary rotations to present a worthy king. If I fail, I must surrender my throne to Lord Vathus. He believes the Celestines should conquer emotional species rather than learn from them. He would bring war to your people and many others. So I have 30 days to become a king, Marcus said. How do I do that? Seraphine looked at him with ancient, frozen eyes. I do not know. I only know that you must. She waved her hand, and guards moved to escort Marcus away. As he was leaving, he looked back. He saw Lyra still standing alone at the base of the throne. Her mother already turned away and focused on other matters. The little girl looked so small, so lonely. Marcus stopped. "Lyra, come on. You can show me where I am supposed to stay." Lyra looked up surprised. Then a small smile crossed her face. The first real smile Marcus had seen from her. She ran to him and took his hand. As they walked away together, Marcus made a decision. He might not be able to save a civilization. He might not know how to be a king, but he knew how to be there for a child who needed someone. And for now, that would be enough. Marcus did not try to be a king. He did not know how. Instead, he simply lived his life the way he always had, and let the Celestine watch. On the first morning in the palace, he woke up early and found the royal kitchen. The cooks stood in perfect lines, preparing food with mechanical precision. Everything was measured exactly. Every movement was efficient. There was no joy in their work. Marcus watched for a while, then asked, "Can I use the kitchen?" The head cook, a tall Celestine named Vorn, looked at him with blank eyes. "For what purpose?" "I want to make breakfast. Real breakfast. The kind my wife used to make." The cooks exchanged glances. They did not understand the request, but they stepped aside and let Marcus work. He found ingredients that were close enough to what he needed. Eggs from some alien bird, a grain that was similar to flour, a sweet syrup from a local plant. He mixed and cooked and made a mess of the perfect kitchen. He hummed while he worked, an old song Sarah used to sing. When he finished, he had made something that looked almost like pancakes. They were purple and slightly lumpy, but they smelled wonderful. He sat down at the kitchen counter and ate them slowly, closing his eyes to enjoy every bite. Lyra found him there. She climbed onto the seat beside him and stared at the strange food. "What is that?" "Pancakes, or my best attempt at them. Want to try?" She took a small bite. Her violet eyes went wide. "This tastes different. Not just nutrients. There is something else," Comfort Marcus said. "My wife called it comfort food. It is not about perfect nutrition. It is about feeling good, about memories and warmth and home." Lyra took another bite, then another. When she finished, she looked up at Marcus with wonder. "I think I understand. A little bit." The kitchen staff watched in silence. Later that day, Marcus heard that several of them had tried making their own variations of the recipe. They were attempting to understand this strange concept of comfort. Over the following days, Marcus made his presence felt throughout the palace. He did not give speeches or hold meetings. He just lived. He taught Lyra to play simple games. Hide and seek in the crystal corridors. Card games with a deck he made from pieces of paper. She had never played games before. Celestine children were taught skills and knowledge, but never games. What was the point of an activity that produced nothing useful? But when Lyra won her first game, she laughed. A real laugh. The sound echoed through the halls and made servants stop in their tracks. They had not heard a child laugh in the palace for centuries. Marcus told stories at night. Not educational histories or scientific facts. Real stories. Tales of heroes who fought impossible battles. Stories about love and sacrifice and hope. He told Lyra about ancient Earth legends. Knights and dragons. Brave explorers crossing unknown oceans. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things simply because giving up was not in their nature. One evening, an elderly advisor named Minister Thalrin joined them. He sat in the corner, listening with his head tilted like a confused bird, when Marcus finished a story about a small human who carried a ring into the heart of darkness. "To save the world," Thalrin spoke up. "I do not understand." The logical choice was to use the powerful ring. Why did he choose to destroy it? Because some things are too dangerous to keep, even if they offer power. Sometimes the bravest thing is giving up strength to do what is right, but that is not rational. Marcus smiled. "No, it is human." Thalrin thought about this for a long time. He came back the next night to hear another story. And the night after that, soon others joined. Servants and guards, cooks and advisors. They sat in the shadows, listening to Marcus spin tales about a species they were only beginning to understand. Queen Seraphine observed from a distance. Marcus often caught glimpses of her watching him through doorways or from high balconies. She never approached, never participated, but she was always there, studying him like a puzzle she could not solve. One day, she finally came to him directly. Marcus was in the palace garden, a strange place filled with plants of crystal and light. He was sitting on a bench, watching Lyra chase small flying creatures that sparkled like living gems. Seraphine sat down beside him. She moved with perfect grace, but her posture was stiff and uncertain. "You confuse me," she said without greeting. "Hello to you too." She ignored his comment. "I have observed you for 12 days. You perform no work that produces measurable value. You waste resources preparing illogical food. You spend hours telling fictional narratives to my daughter. By every Celestine standard, you are completely useless." Thanks again for the kind words. And yet, Seraphine paused, her brow creasing slightly. "My servants speak of you. They discuss your stories. They debate the meaning of your actions. For the first time in decades, they are showing curiosity about something other than their assigned duties. This is unprecedented." Marcus watched Lyra giggle as she tried to catch a glowing butterfly. "They are starting to feel just tiny bits? Curiosity is an emotion too. Explain to me why you hum." The question surprised him. "What?" "When you cook, you make sounds. A repeating pattern of tones. The kitchen staff asked me about it, and I did not know the answer. Why do you do this?" Marcus thought about it. "It makes the work feel lighter, less boring, more enjoyable, but the work remains the same. The difficulty does not change." "No," Marcus agreed, "but I change. Humming makes me happier, and when I am happier, the work does not feel as hard. It is not about changing the world. It is about changing how you experience the world." Seraphine processed this in silence. Her violet eyes watched Lyra playing in the garden. "Tell me about human bonding. The way you interact with my daughter? What is the purpose?" "There is no purpose. I like her. She is kind and brave and curious. Being around her makes me feel less alone. I hope being around me makes her feel the same. Companionship without practical benefit. Yes, we call it friendship, or family." Seraphine turned to look at him directly. Her perfect face was expressionless, but her eyes held something new, a question she did not know how to ask. "When you lost your wife and daughter," she said slowly, "you experienced great pain. I have read about human grief. It is described as one of the most devastating emotions your species can endure. Why do you not simply delete these memories? Remove the source of pain?" Marcus felt his heart clench. He thought about Sarah's smile, Emma's laugh, the way they felt in his arms, the way their absence felt like a hole in his chest that would never close. "Because the pain is proof they existed," he said, his voice rough. "Proof that I loved them. If I erased them, it would be like they never mattered. I would rather hurt forever than forget them for one single second." Seraphine stared at him. Something shifted in her frozen eyes. A crack in the ice. A glimpse of something underneath that wanted to break free. "I do not understand," she whispered, "but I think I want to." "Is that normal?" "That is the most normal thing I have heard since I got here." They sat together in silence, watching Lyra play. It was the first moment of peace Marcus had felt since arriving on Royan Prime that night. Lord Vathas made his move. Marcus was awakened by guards entering his room. They did not come to hurt him. They came to deliver a message. "Lord Vathas has invoked the trial of worth," one guard said, his face blank as always. "You must face the ancient test to prove you are fit to be king. If you refuse, you will be labeled a coward and sent away. If you fail, you will die." Marcus sat up in bed, his heart pounding. "And if I succeed?" "No outsider has ever succeeded. The trial is designed for Celestine minds. It requires mental endurance beyond human capability. Lord Vathas knows this. He expects you to fail." Marcus thought about running. He thought about giving up. He thought about all the logical reasons to admit defeat. Then he thought about Lyra's smile when she won her first game. The way the kitchen staff had started humming while they worked. The crack of feeling he had seen in Seraphine's ancient eyes. Something had started here. Something small, but important. And he refused to let it die. When does the trial begin? Tomorrow at sunrise. Marcus took a deep breath. Then I guess I better get some sleep. The guard tilted his head, clearly expecting fear or panic. But Marcus just lay back down and closed his eyes. He was terrified. But he had learned something from all those stories he told. Heroes were not people without fear. Heroes were people who felt fear and kept going anyway. Tomorrow, he would find out if a broken human mechanic could be a hero too. The night before the trial, Lyra came to Marcus's room. Her violet eyes were red from crying. Real tears ran down her silver cheeks, leaving trails that sparkled in the dim light. "You cannot go," she said, her small voice breaking. "Please, the trial will kill you. Everyone says so. Lord Vathas designed it to be impossible for humans. Please, Marcus. Please do not go." Marcus sat on the edge of his bed and looked at this small alien girl who had somehow become important to him. In just 2 weeks, she had found her way into his broken heart. She reminded him so much of Emma, the same curiosity, the same courage hiding behind frightened eyes. "Come here," he said gently. Lyra ran to him and buried her face against his chest. Her tears soaked through his shirt. Marcus held her tight and stroked her silver hair. "Listen to me," he said. "I am scared. Really scared. But you know what? Being scared is not the same as being beaten. Humans have done impossible things throughout our history. We have climbed mountains that should have killed us, crossed oceans in tiny boats, gone to the moon in machines held together with hope and stubbornness." He pulled back and lifted her chin so she could see his eyes. "Do you know what our secret is? We do not quit. Even when everything tells us we should, even when the smart choice is to give up, there is something inside us that just keeps going. It is stupid. It is irrational. And it has saved us more times than I can count. But what if you die?" Marcus wiped her tears with his thumb. "Then I die trying to protect something that matters. That is not the worst way to go. But I do not plan on dying, little star. I plan on being very stubborn tomorrow. It is what I do best." Lyra hugged him again, tighter this time. "I do not want to lose another father." The word hit Marcus like a wave. Father. She had called him that before, on Neptune Station. But this time, it felt different. This time it felt real. "You are not going to lose me," he promised. "Not without a fight." Later, after Lyra had fallen asleep in the chair beside his bed, Marcus noticed a shadow in the doorway. Queen Seraphine stood there, watching. Her face was as still as always, but her hands were trembling slightly at her sides. She did not speak. Neither did Marcus. But something passed between them in the silence. An understanding that needed no words. Then Seraphine turned and disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, the trial began. The arena was a massive dome of crystal at the heart of the capital. Thousands of Celestine filled the seats, their silver faces blank and unreadable. Lord Vathas sat in a special box, his cold eyes fixed on Marcus with open contempt. Vathas was tall and sharp-featured, with violet eyes that held no warmth at all. He looked at Marcus the way someone might look at an insect about to be crushed. "The human has accepted the trial of worth," Vathas announced, his voice carrying across the arena. "Let the record show his bravery. And let them also show his inevitable failure." The trial had 3 parts. The first was a test of mental endurance. Marcus was placed in a chair and connected to a machine that projected complex puzzles directly into his mind. He had to solve them quickly or face increasing pain. The puzzles were designed for Celestine minds. Thousands of years of logic and calculation. Marcus solved none of them correctly. The pain grew worse and worse. He screamed. He gritted his teeth. But he did not surrender. When the first test ended, Marcus was dripping with sweat and shaking. The Celestine audience murmured with something that might have been surprise. Most subjects gave up within minutes. Marcus had endured for almost an hour. "Stubborn creature," Vathus muttered, but he did not look pleased. The second test was physical. Marcus had to cross a field filled with obstacles while being attacked by automated drones. The course was designed for Celestine reflexes and strength. Marcus was too slow, too weak, too human. He was hit again and again. He fell. He bled. He got back up. He kept moving. When he finally reached the end of the course, he could barely stand. His face was bruised. His arm hung at a strange angle. But he had crossed the finish line. The crowd was completely silent now. This was not supposed to happen. The human should have quit long ago. Why was he still fighting? But the third test was the one that truly mattered. The psychic gauntlet. Marcus was led to a chamber at the center of the arena. Inside was a machine that looked like a throne made of black crystal. Veins of violet light pulsed through it like a living thing. "This device will enter your mind," an official explained without emotion. "It will find your deepest fears and your most painful memories. It will use them against you. To pass, you must reach the marker at the far end of the chamber while the machine attacks your psyche. Most Celestine take years of training to survive this test. Many still fail. For a human, it is essentially impossible." Marcus looked at the machine. He thought about Sarah, about Emma, about the day he lost them. The machine would use that against him. It would tear open his oldest wounds and make him relive the worst moment of his life. "Let me through," he said. The chamber sealed behind him. The machine activated, and suddenly Marcus was no longer in the arena. He was standing in his old home on Earth. Sarah was cooking dinner. Emma was drawing at the kitchen table. The smell of pasta and garlic filled the air. His family smiled at him like nothing had ever happened. "Stay with us," Sarah said, her voice soft and warm. "Stay here. You can be happy again. Just stay." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. This was all he had ever wanted. To have them back. To undo the tragedy that had destroyed his world, but he knew it was not real. This was the machine. This was the trap. "I love you," he whispered. "I will always love you. But you are gone. And I have to keep living. I have to keep going. For Lyra, for Seraphine. For myself." He took a step forward. The illusion shattered. Now he was standing at a funeral. 2 coffins. One large, one small. Rain fell from gray skies. He was alone among strangers who offered empty words of comfort. The pain hit him like a physical blow. His knees buckled. He fell to the ground, gasping. Every loss, every regret, every moment of despair from the past 5 years crashed through his mind like a flood. The machine showed him his daughter's empty bedroom. Her toys still scattered on the floor. Her drawings still pinned to the wall. The silence where her laughter used to be. It showed him the mornings when he could not get out of bed. The nights when he drank until he could not think. The moments when he pressed a razor to his wrist and wondered if anything mattered anymore. Marcus screamed. He wept. He lay on the cold floor of the chamber, broken and bleeding from wounds, both physical and emotional. The marker was 50 feet away. It might as well have been 1,000,000 miles. But then he heard something, a small voice cutting through the darkness of his memories. "I do not want to lose another father, Lyra." She was counting on him. She needed him. And somewhere behind that frozen exterior, Seraphine needed him too. A whole civilization was dying because they had forgotten how to feel. He could not fix everything. But he could show them that feeling was worth it. Even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. Marcus placed his palms on the ground. He pushed himself up. His arms shook. His vision blurred. But he rose. 1 step. The machine showed him Sarah's grave. Cold stone with her name carved into it. Another step. Emma's hospital records. The moment they told him she was gone. Another step. His own reflection in a mirror. A broken man with nothing left to live for. Marcus gasped, blood dripping from his nose. "I have been broken for 5 years. I know what broken feels like. I know how to keep going anyway. That is what humans do. We break, and we break, and we keep walking. Because giving up is not in our nature. Another step. Another memory. Another wave of unbearable pain. But Marcus did not stop. He crawled when he could not walk. He dragged himself forward inch by inch. He embraced every painful memory, every moment of grief, because denying them would be denying that his family had ever existed. "I am not strong because I do not feel," he shouted at the machine. "I am strong because I feel everything, and I keep going anyway." That is humanity. That is the warmth. The ability to carry impossible pain and still refuse to give up. The marker was 3 feet away. Marcus could barely see it through his tears. His body was failing. His mind was screaming. Every logical part of him said to stop. But logic had never been humanity's strength. He reached out. His fingers touched the marker. The machine shut down. Silence fell over the arena. Marcus collapsed on the floor, unconscious before he even finished falling. In the stands, thousands of Celestine sat in stunned silence. They had watched a creature relive his worst nightmares and refused to surrender. They had witnessed something they could not name, something that frightened them and fascinated them in equal measure. Lord Vathus stood from his box, his face twisted with cold fury. "This proves nothing. The human merely survived through primitive stubbornness. There is no honor in such display." The crowd did not seem to agree. Something had changed. The Celestine were looking at Marcus with an expression they had never worn before. They were looking at him with respect, and in her private box above the arena. Queen Seraphine stood with her hands pressed against the crystal barrier. Her violet eyes were wide. Her breath came fast, and for the first time in her long life, she felt something wet sliding down her silver cheek. A tear. She was crying. She did not know how. She did not know why. But watching Marcus refuse to give up had cracked something open inside her that could never be closed again. Below, guards rushed to carry the unconscious human to medical care. But Seraphine barely noticed. She was too busy trying to understand the strange and terrifying feeling blooming in her chest. She had a name for it. From her studies of human culture, hope, and for the first time, she understood why it mattered. Marcus woke in a bed of soft light. Medical machines hummed around him, healing his wounds with technology far beyond anything human science could create. His body still ached, but the worst damage had been repaired. Lyra sat beside his bed, her small hand wrapped around his fingers. When she saw his eyes open, she let out a cry of relief and threw herself across his chest. "You are alive. I was so scared. They said you might not wake up. They said your mind might be damaged from the trial. But you are okay. You are really okay." Marcus wrapped his arms around her and held tight. "I told you. Stubborn. Very stubborn." She laughed through her tears, and the sound filled the medical chamber like music. A door opened. Queen Seraphine entered, her movements less graceful than usual. She seemed uncertain, hesitant, almost afraid. She stopped at the foot of his bed and looked at him with those deep violet eyes. "You survived," she said. "The physicians cannot explain how. The mental damage you endured should have destroyed your cognitive functions. But your brain patterns show remarkable resilience. You simply refuse to break. That is the nicest thing you have ever said to me." Seraphine's lips twitched. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. "Do not become accustomed to kindness. I am still learning how it works." She moved closer, her steps slow and careful. "I watched your trial. I saw what the machine showed you. Your family, your loss. I felt something while watching. An ache in my chest. A pressure behind my eyes. I did not understand it at first." She reached up and touched her cheek where the tear had fallen. I cried. For the first time in my existence, I do not know how to process this experience. Marcus sat up slowly, wincing at the pain. That ache is called compassion. The pressure is called sadness. Feeling someone else's pain as if it were your own. It means you are not as frozen as you thought. Seraphine looked at her hand, then at Marcus. "You did this to me. You broke something inside me that I cannot repair. Good. Some things need to stay broken. Before she could respond, the door burst open again. Guards flooded in, followed by Lord Vathas himself. His cold face was twisted with barely contained rage. "It's far sins now," he declared. "The human survived through animal instinct, nothing more. He has proven nothing, except that his species is too stupid to know when they are beaten. I demand the trial be declared invalid." Seraphine turned to face him. Her posture straightened. Something changed in her expression. The ice that had defined her for centuries began to crack and fall away. "You demand?" Her voice was different now. There was heat in it. Fire. "You dare to demand anything of me?" Vathas actually took a step back. He had never heard emotion in the Queen's voice before. It unsettled him. "The Council will support me. The human is unworthy. He is weak and primitive and ruled by emotion." "And what of it?" Seraphine stepped toward him, her eyes blazing with something new and dangerous. "I have watched this human for weeks. I have studied him, analyzed him, tried to understand what makes him different, and I finally know the answer." She gestured at Marcus with an open hand. "He is weak. Yes, physically inferior. Mentally limited. By every metric we use to measure worth, he fails. But those metrics are flawed. They measure only what can be counted. They ignore what truly matters." The guards exchanged uncertain glances. The Queen had never spoken like this before. "I watched this man face a machine designed to destroy his mind. I watched it tear open his deepest wounds and force him to relive the worst moments of his existence. Do you know what he did? He embraced the pain. He let it flow through him without trying to escape, and then he kept moving forward. Not because logic told him to, but because something inside him simply refused to quit." Seraphine turned to look at Marcus, and her frozen face softened into something almost tender. "That is not weakness. That is strength beyond anything our people have ever known. The strength to feel devastating pain and keep going anyway. The strength to love, even knowing that love can be lost. The strength to hope even when hope seems foolish." She turned back to Vathas. "You call emotions primitive, but I say they are the most advanced technology in the universe. They are what give life meaning. Without them, we are nothing but machines going through motions until we eventually stop. And I am tired of being a machine," Vathas snarled. "You speak madness. The Council will never accept this. They will remove you from power. Perhaps." Seraphine lifted her chin. "But I do not think they will." She looked past Vathas to the guards behind him. "You watched the trial. All of you. You saw what the human endured. You saw him refuse to surrender. Tell me honestly, did any of you feel something while watching? Something strange and unfamiliar stirring in your chest?" The guards were silent, but their eyes said everything. They had felt it. That tiny spark of something they could not name. The first emotion any of them had experienced in generations. "I thought so," Seraphine said softly. "The warmth is contagious. It spreads from one being to another. It cannot be taught through lessons or books. It can only be learned by being near someone who truly feels. The human has given us something our civilization lost thousands of years ago. He has given us the chance to be alive again." Vathas looked around at his guards, seeing the uncertainty in their faces. His support was crumbling. "This changes nothing. The law requires the king to prove his worth through the trial. Survival alone is not enough. Then let us ask the people." Seraphine raised her voice, knowing that every word was being broadcast across the planet. "Citizens of the Celestine Dominion, you have watched these events. You have seen the human called Marcus Coalface trials that should have destroyed him. You have heard my words. Now I ask you, is this creature worthy to be your king? Not by our old standards of cold logic, but by a new standard, the standard of heart." Silence stretched across the chamber. Across the city? Across the world. Then, slowly, a sound began to build. It came from everywhere at once. A murmur that grew into a roar. Celestine voices raised together for the first time in memory. Not in cold agreement. In something that sounded almost like passion. Worthy, worthy, worthy. The cry echoed through the crystal halls. It rang from the floating cities. It shook the very foundations of a civilization that had forgotten how to feel. And in that moment, something changed. Something that could never be unchanged. Lord Vathus stood alone, his supporters melting away. He looked at Seraphine with hatred burning in his eyes. "You have doomed us all. Emotions will tear our society apart." "Perhaps," Seraphine said calmly. "Or perhaps they will finally make us whole." Guards stepped forward and took Vathus by the arms. He did not resist. He simply stared at Seraphine with cold promise. "This is not over." "No," she agreed. "It is only beginning." When Vathus was gone, Seraphine turned to Marcus. Her expression was uncertain now, almost shy. It was strange to see such vulnerability on a face that had been frozen for so long. "I have never done this before," she said quietly. "I do not know the proper protocol, but I believe the human custom is to ask." She knelt beside his bed and took his hand in hers. Her silver skin was cool against his warmth. "Marcus Cole. Broken mechanic. Stubborn human. Will you stay with us? Not as a symbol or a solution, but as a partner, a father to my daughter. And perhaps in time something more to me?" Marcus looked at this strange, beautiful queen who was learning to feel for the first time. He looked at Lyra, beaming at him with violet eyes full of hope. He thought about Sarah and Emma. They would want him to be happy again. They would want him to love again. "Yes," he said simply. "I will stay." Lyra cheered and threw herself into the embrace. Seraphine hesitated, then slowly, awkwardly, put her arms around them both. It was clumsy, unpracticed. The first family embrace she had ever attempted. It was perfect in the months that followed. The Celestine Dominion began to change. Slowly at first, then faster and faster. People started to create art again. Musicians composed songs that had no logical purpose except to make listeners feel something. Writers told stories about love and loss and triumph. Children learned to play games and laugh and cry. Marcus did not become a traditional king. He had no interest in politics or ceremonies. Instead, he became something more important. A teacher. A bridge between worlds. He showed the Celestine that emotions were not weakness to be feared, but strength to be embraced. Seraphine learned to smile, then to laugh, then to cry when sad and shout when angry and love with a fierce intensity that surprised everyone, including herself. She was not always good at feeling. Sometimes she felt too much. Sometimes she felt the wrong things. But she kept trying, and that was what mattered. Lyra grew up surrounded by warmth. She called Marcus's father without hesitation now, and the word no longer made him sad. It made him proud. She had two families, the one she lost and the one she found. Both were real. Both were precious. The Celestine Renaissance, as historians would later call it, spread across the Dominion. Birth rates increased for the first time in centuries. Innovation flourished as passion returned to science and art. Celestine, who had spent their whole lives feeling empty, finally discovered what it meant to be full. Not everyone welcomed the change. There were struggles and setbacks. Some Celestine found emotions overwhelming and frightening. Learning to feel after generations of numbness was not easy. But with each passing year, more and more of them made the journey from cold logic to warm hearts. Other species watched in amazement as the Celestine transformed. The cold empire that had inspired fear across the galaxy became something new, something better. And at the heart of it all was a simple story. A grieving human who had nothing left to lose, a frightened child who needed a father, a frozen queen who wanted to learn how to love. Years later, when galactic historians studied the Celestine Renaissance, they traced it back to one moment on a small space station orbiting Neptune. A damaged ship crashing in the night. A lonely mechanic running toward the wreckage. A silver-skinned child with tears in her violet eyes. Human, my mother needs a king, and I need a father. Please come with us, against all logic, against all reason. Against every sensible instinct, telling him to stay safe and alone. Marcus Cole had taken her hand and said yes, And that single word changed everything. On the anniversary of their meeting, Marcus stood on a balcony of the Crystal Palace. Watching the twin suns set over Arayan Prime, Seraphine stood beside him, her hand warm in his. Lyra sat on the railing, now a young woman with her mother's grace and her father's stubborn heart. "Do you ever regret it?" Seraphine asked. "Leaving your old life behind?" Marcus thought about his workshop on Neptune, his empty rooms, his half-life of grief and survival. Then he looked at his family. His strange, wonderful, impossible family. "Not for a single second," he said. Lyra grinned. "Good, because you are stuck with us now." "I know," Marcus said, pulling them both close. "That is exactly where I want to be." As the suns painted the sky in shades of gold and violet, the broken mechanic, who became a king, held his family tight and finally understood. Something his wife had told him long ago: home was not a place. Home was people. And after 5 years of wandering lost, Marcus Cole had finally found his way back.